Greetings, beloved, and welcome to this edition of On the Living Edge. Dr. Mark Chironna here. I trust your new year is off to a blessed beginning. I want to say thank you, as always, to our Edge partners for your ongoing faithfulness and support, enabling us to continue to do the work that I believe is an important work all around the world. We couldn't do it without you, and I'm ever so grateful that you're partnering with us to accomplish it. May God bless you richly. Beloved, we're in a brand new beginning of year series, The Malaise and the Mystery, Prophetic Wisdom from Ecclesiastes. And now we're going to touch a big question. Who knows? This is about sacred ignorance and about how all the horizons that have collapsed open up when we can answer the question, who knows? Open your heart, open your mind, open the sacred text to Ecclesiastes chapter 9, and let's begin to unpack who knows. Beloved, we are now in the third segment of the Malaise and the Mystery, Prophetic Wisdom from Ecclesiastes. And I'm calling this lesson, Who Knows? The Wisdom for Opacity, O-P-A-C-I-T-Y, big word, and the encounter beyond explanation. Who knows? The wisdom for what you can't see clearly, the wisdom for what's opaque, for what's blurry, and the encounter beyond explanation. We're going to look at passages chapter 7 to 11 in Ecclesiastes. We're going to look at Job just a little bit, and we're going to look at Psalm 73. Here are the horizons. We've talked about the 7 horizons at the beginning. We covered a few of them in the last lesson. We're going to cover some of those again and cover 2 more. We're going to cover the horizon of meaning, the horizon of hope, the horizon of agency, and the horizon of transcendence all together. Now, when Solomon raises the question in Ecclesiastes 3:21, 6:12, 8:1, and 11:5. Who knows whether the spirit of man goes upward? Who knows what's good for man? Who knows the interpretation of a thing? Then he goes on in 11:5, you don't know the work of God who makes everything. We go from 3 who knows to you don't know, right? And so here's the verdict. And it's right there in chapter 8, verses 16 and 17. When I applied my heart to know wisdom, then I saw all the work of God, that man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. However, much man may toil in seeking, he will not find it out. Even though a wise man claims to know, he cannot find it out. What Solomon is saying is wisdom is confessing, I haven't got a clue. It's Ezekiel, when the Lord says, can these bones live? He says, I haven't got a clue. That's where wisdom begins. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. This isn't anti-intellectualism. It's not a cop-out. Kohelet, the preacher, Solomon values wisdom. The point is that even wisdom has limits. And I would argue that when we're reading the wisdom literature, Ecclesiastes, Proverbs, and the like, we're left hanging because until Christ, who is wisdom, infinite wisdom, appears in the fullness of time, all other wisdom falls short. And so it's not anti-intellectual. He values wisdom. The point is that even wisdom, as he's talking about it, has limits. He's a sage who's pursuing understanding, and he's pursuing it with full rigor, and he arrives at the boundary, the limit of human knowing, and he can't get past it. So what's the connection to the horizon of meaning, the horizon of agency, the horizon of transcendence? Well, here we go. Meaning requires, as I said in the first lesson, coherence, but we can't see the whole. Agency requires foresight, but some of the outcomes in our life are hidden from us. And the meaning, the horizon of transcendence promises access to ultimate reality, but God's work remains opaque. We are hidden with Christ in God, and so there's the hiding of his power. So in our contemporary culture, there's something called sophistry that parades as wisdom, but what we've got today in the 21st century, even in the church, a lot of times is information without wisdom. That's the paradox of our moment. This today, with everything we have in terms of the digital age, we have unprecedented access to information that our grandparents wouldn't have gotten in a year or two. We get it in a day or a month. They would have never seen that much, exposed to that much information in a year of their life. But all that access to information hasn't made us any wiser. It's produced two opposite errors. It has given us false certainty. We claim to have decoded what's hidden. We claim that pattern matching produces totalizing explanations. That's called conspiracy theories. We have false certainty about psychological function, anxiety management, all the way to pseudo-knowledge. Listen, I could talk about these for hours. And we have false certainty about fruit. Well, what's the fruit we're bearing? It's not love, joy, peace, long-suffering. Guess what the fruit is we're bearing? Suspicion, isolation, rage, fractured relationships. That's the fruit we're bearing, all based on the temptation that everything's a conspiracy. It all gives us false certainty, false assurance, false comfort. Guess what it produces? Paralysis. It's the temptation to despair. If nothing can be known, nothing should be attempted. Overwhelm that leads to withdrawal. And what's the fruit of that? Passivity, numbness, and disengagement. Now, I have been in the people helping business now for 50 plus years. I've been in the coaching business for 30. I have 30,000 hours clocked of real-time coaching people from every walk of life. And I can tell you, the things people wrestle with are in the list I just gave you, both in terms of false certainty and paralysis. And there is no end to what people are wrestling with. So what's the preacher's third way out of this? What's Kohelet's way? Neither false certainty nor paralysis, but faithful action within acknowledged limits. He's starting to get a little bit smart here the further we get into the book, right? The distinction, what's the distinction between mystery and mystification? Mystery and mystification. Some people are just downright spooky in the charismatic movement. I hope that doesn't offend some of you, but some stuff is just, when people claim they've got a revelation from God, some of it is just downright spooky. It's not scriptural. It's strange, and people flock to this stuff. Well, mystery is what cannot be known because we're finite and God is infinite. There's a structural feature of being finite that's tied to creaturely existence. We're finite, He's infinite. And the appropriate response to all of that is humility, awe, trust, and an openness toward faith, because Paul talks about the mystery of faith. Now, mystification, on the other hand, is the claim that truth is hidden but accessible through special knowledge. Now, that's actually Gnostic heresy, but it's parading as truth in some of our circles. And mystification exploits discomfort with not knowing. And the appropriate response is to be suspicious of the claims. God's given me a revelation, and unless you apply this, you're not going to have your breakthrough. Stay as far away as you can. It's heretical. And the other part is that once you embrace mystification, you become unteachable because you now open up to pride. But guess what the flip side of that is? Because the devil never plays fair. The moment you open up to pride, you are open to paranoia. Because for every conspiracy theory you believe, you will become paranoid about what challenges it. That's just the reality, because the devil never plays fair. Kohelet names the mystery. He doesn't traffic in mystification. He names the mystery. Here's the mystery. You don't know the work of God. That's the mystery. You don't know the work of God. It's sacred ignorance. It's not, I figured out what God is hiding, and if you pay me $1,000, I'll tell you how to get this revelation working in your life. What's the prophetic application? The church has to model the difference between mystery and mystification. We have to live joyfully within mystery. We have to refuse the paranoid way of knowing that demands total transparency. There's an unexpected turn in Ecclesiastes 9 to 11 after the who knows of those other 5 chapters. And it's not withdrawal, but it's vigorous engagement. Ecclesiastes 9, 7 to 10, go, eat your bread with joy, drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. Whatever your hand finds to do it with your might. That's a call to full living. That's a call to the abundant life. Ecclesiastes 11:1, cast your bread on the waters, for you will find it after many days. That's generosity without calculation. Years ago, I did an entire 4-message series on this, on the secret of Solomon's wealth in relationship to building the temple, because they didn't have gold in the promised land. There's no gold in the promised land. There's grain, there's barley, there's wheat, there's fruit, but there's no gold. In order to have gold, he'd have to build ships that could go halfway around the world to the continent of Africa. And he needed his friends that were the Phoenicians to help him build naval ships and train a navy in order to go that far. And he built all those ships with his father's friend, the Phoenician king, and he loaded those ships by faith with gold and grain, what he had. And he shipped it all the way to Africa. And because they had gold and didn't have grain, because the soil was not arable and because it wasn't able to grow, but they had mining and they had gold, they were willing to trade the gold for the grain, and they brought back that gold that ended up being the gold leafing on that $55 billion structure, because Solomon said, cast your bread on the waters. Listen, there's a principle there. Generosity without calculation. The more who gives, the one who gives will always have it given back. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together. 11:6, in the morning sow your seed, and at evening withhold not your hand. For you do not know which will prosper, this or that, or whether both alike will be good. That's action without a guaranteed outcome, which is why you keep sowing into the future. The logic, uncertainty is not an excuse for inaction. It's the condition of faithful action. We act not because we can calculate the results, but because faithful action is itself the form that wisdom takes in a world that's opaque, that I can't see clearly through. Faith walks in such a way that it doesn't rely on what it can see. It relies on what it knows. Now, what's the connection to the horizon? This is about agency and about hope. This is about agency reframed. The horizon of agency is not control over outcomes. It's faithfulness in action. And the horizon of hope is to reframe it so that it's not certainty about the future, but trust that enables you to keep moving forward. Now, what about the limits of wisdom itself? This is wisdom in Solomon's understanding of wisdom as opposed to the wisdom of God himself. In 7:15, he says, in my vain life I have seen everything. There's a righteous man who perishes in his righteousness, and there's a wicked man who prolongs his life in evil doing. What he's saying is that the equation doesn't balance. But then he says this in 16 to 18, be not overly righteous. And do not make yourself too wise. Why should you destroy yourself? That's pretty astonishing counsel. What he's saying is not moral laxity. It's a warning against treating righteousness as a contract that guarantees outcomes. I think I need to say that again. It's a warning against treating righteousness as a contract that guarantees outcomes. The person who grasps at virtue as insurance will be destroyed when the insurance policy fails. I'll let you think about that for a minute. There's a lot of connections here to existential psychology, depth psychology, and Charles Taylor's reframing of the whole issue of disenchantment. Listen, in existential psychology, what's this about? It's the shattering of what is called the just world hypothesis. In depth psychology, it's the collapse of the mask that Carl Jung calls the persona that's built on moral performance. And in Charles Taylor, the Christian philosopher's framing, it's the conditions of belief becoming fragile when the moral equations fail. Christianity is not a moralism. Christianity is a shared life with God. It's not a moralism. It's not a set of do's and don'ts. Listen carefully. We're about to touch the one place we wouldn't want to go but need to go, the book of Job. Because here's the encounter that exceeds explanation. Like the preacher, Koholeth, Job discovers that wisdom equations don't balance. Like the preacher, Koholeth, Job faces the hiddenness of God's work. But unlike Koholeth, Job receives an encounter. There's a voice in the whirlwind from verses chapter 38 to 41. He hears someone call him from the whirlwind, from the glory cloud, from the dark cloud. This is the same whirlwind that covered Sinai. This is the same whirlwind that caught up Elijah. This is the same cloud that settled in on the tabernacle. Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Dress for action like a man. I will question you. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? What the speech is not. Because Job's got questions he wants answered. It's not an explanation of Job's suffering. It's not a justification of God's actions, and it's not any answers to Job's questions. What the speech is, it's a display of God's power, God's wisdom, and God's sovereignty. It's overwhelming of Job's way of knowing in his frame of thinking. This is way beyond the way he's ever thought. It's blowing his mind. This is encounter that exceeds and relativizes the demand for explanation. God, you owe me an explanation. He owes you nothing. He owes you nothing. And the moment you accept that is the moment things open up. His response, chapter 42, I heard about you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you. So there's a shift from secondhand knowledge to firsthand encounter. Not information, presence. Job doesn't understand more, but he knows God more. So important. He never gets the answers. He does get everything restored, but he never gets the answers as to why. We're back to theodicy. Why does a good God allow evil? And those of you that think you have the answers, you're proving that you don't. The connection to the horizons, the horizon of transcendence and the horizon of meaning. The horizon of transcendence, it's no longer something that is absent, but overwhelmingly present. Transcendence is not a goal. Transcendence is a person. It's God in the fullness of his being. And the horizon of meaning is not explained. It's held within relationship. So what? The mystery remains. But now it's a mystery within encounter, not a mystery as abandonment. I can live with what I've got to go through if I'm aware God is going through it with me. There's the difference. And then finally, Asaph's psalm, one of my favorite psalms, Psalm 73. Verses 1 to 14 is all about how the wicked prosper and the righteous suffer, and how Asaph says, I kept my heart clean, but I did it in vain. And his horizon of meaning collapses. His horizon of significance collapses. And then we get to the hinge, verses 16 and 17. But when I thought how to understand this, it seemed to me a wearisome task, until I went into the sanctuary of God, and I discerned their end, meaning the end of the wicked. The shift happened for Asaph, not in analysis, but in presence. I went into the sanctuary. There is a way of knowing that will break through in the context of worship, not in the context of trying to analyze your way through your struggle. Stop trying to analyze or intellectualize your way through the struggle. Come before the presence of the King. Verses 25 and 26, I wrote a song about this years ago that ended up getting recorded. Whom have I in heaven, he says at the end, but you? And there is nothing on earth that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. What's the connection to the horizons here? Because the circumstances are unchanged. The wicked are still going to prosper, and his flesh, Asaph's flesh, is still going to fail. But transcendence is restored. Whom have I in heaven but thee? And with it, meaning and significance, both horizons are reframed because God himself is Asaph's portion. Job's longing in Job 9, for he is not a man as I am, that I might answer him, that we should come to trial together. There is no arbiter between us, who might lay his hand on us both. There's only one answer to that. It's Jesus. Jesus is the man who comes in between. He eventually will say, I know that my Redeemer lives, and that even if I die, I will yet stand to see him. Christ is the mediator, fully God, fully human, laying his hand on both the divine and the human. So what about Christ and this opacity, this thing that's not clear? The incarnation, wisdom himself enters the condition of not knowing. That's mind-blowing, and grows in wisdom. That's just utterly mind-blowing. Wisdom asks questions of the wise. Gethsemane, if it be possible. Genuine uncertainty, yours and mine, is what he's embracing. He's doing that for us and as us, and redeeming our will and our agency while he's doing it. The cross, my God, why? The ultimate lack of clarity, the ultimate opacity, the darkest not knowing. He enters into that for us and as us. And then there's resurrection. Not an explanation of the suffering, but a transformation through it. He rises above it all, trampling death by death. Jesus doesn't explain the mystery from the outside. He enters it, he bears it, and he emerges on the other side with all power in his hand. Job, what's the answer that he's longing for? Is an arbiter, not an information. What he needs is incarnation. So, how do you live with the who knows? Well, you cast your bread on the waters. You diversify. You don't wait for perfect conditions, and you sow continually. And you rejoice in the light you have. Your posture isn't certainty, it's trust. It's not sight, it's faith. It's not answers, it's presence. So the prophetic word for this moment, beloved, as we move into this new year, those that are gripped by false certainty need to realize, even though a wise man claims he knows, he can't find it all out. The pattern they think they see is more likely a psychological projection. The certainty that's producing suspicion, rage, and isolation is not wisdom. It's a different kind of collapse. To those that are paralyzed by uncertainty, this is the prophetic word. Your not knowing is not permission to withdraw. Casting your bread, sowing your seed, and doing what your hand finds to do is essential. Faithful action doesn't require guaranteed outcomes. And to those who've lost their horizon of transcendence, the sanctuary awaits your arrival. Encounter is possible when explanation is withheld. I had heard, is what Job says, but now mine eyes see. All the horizons are reopened in Christ, not through knowledge, but through presence. The horizon of meaning is reopened because we are held within relationship with the one who does know. The horizon of hope because we're grounded in the character of God, not the calculation of our outcomes. The horizon of agency because faithful action within acknowledged limits is what we're called to be. And transcendence because the God who seemed hidden has entered into the hiddenness, and he meets us right there. Beloved, as always, we come to this point in the broadcast, and as we do, as this new year starts, I want us to be able to put our best foot forward in reaching the nations for Jesus. This month, for your love gift of $38, I want to put in your hands this brand new series, The Malaise and the Mystery. The collapse of the seven horizons that I talk about is so significant for where we are in the culture and where we are in Jesus and how Jesus wants to reopen them, that you're going to want to listen to this again and again and share it with your friends and your loved ones. Get the message out there. Your $38 will go a long way to helping us do what God's given us to do around the world, and God will bless you for it. Your love gift makes a difference and is the difference that does make that difference. You can have this in CD, DVD, or MP3, your choice. If you're moved on to sow an additional $20, for $58, I will also include a 2-hour content-rich webinar that I just did, What Kind of Confession is Actually Good for the Soul? And I will take you on a deep dive on what Scripture says about confession, and I'll share it with you from a theological perspective, a psychological perspective and from a perspective of lived experience. It's rich, it's powerful, it's expansive, it's transforming, it's healing. You're going to want it in your library. You can also have that in a way that's conducive to the way you want to hear it and see it. And finally, for a love gift of $78, I have a brand new book that's in PDF form, and it's called Coming Home: 7 Paths to the Life You Already Have. This is about those 7 horizons I've taught on in a way that takes you on a journey of homecoming from the inside out and shows you step by step how those horizons are reopened in your life as you put yourself in a position to allow grace to reopen them. 177 pages worth of rich content. You won't be disappointed. Beloved, this is a moment for you to participate with us. Sow your best love gift, 38, 58, 78, and let me respond and say thank you accordingly. Call now, sow now. Happy New Year. Beloved pastors, if you're in a place where you're desiring input and mentoring on how to navigate the turbulent waters we're in, and you want to be more furnished in what you are called to do and be, as you lead a congregation into the fullness of God's grace, I invite you to participate in my Engage Pastors Fellowship. You can click on that link and it'll take you to tell you all that it's about. We would enjoy having you as part of the journey. Click on that link. We'll see you there.